Jared takes the snap, fakes the give, looks right, throws out there, wide open. Amon-Ra St. Brown, touchdown, Detroit Lions. Hard run fake, 14 snuck out the right side. Goff found him, put another 6 on the board for Detroit.
Welcome to week 5 of the NFL season. The Lions are back on the road playing the Cincinnati Bengals, looking for their 4th straight victory. I am Tim Twentyman. Welcome to the Twentyman the Huddle podcast, and I welcome in first and foremost Ben Raven. Does a great job covering everything Lions with the M Live Network, but people might not know he is also a professionally trained wrestler and commentator.
Yeah.
When did that start?
It was 2017. I was in a different role at M Live, and I'd always been a wrestling fan my whole life, and I'm 6'6", 250, and a former athlete, so I was like, let's go. And I found this great school in Canada. I trained for a couple of years, and then the in-ring stuff kind of ended in 2020 because I didn't have a gateway to Canada anymore, but for the last 3 years, I've been doing some pro wrestling commentary and play-by-play, and
that's
I
awesome.
just love being involved with it.
Dude, that's awesome because you took Justin Rogers, who's been on the podcast before. I think you took him to kind of a little bit of an underground wrestling type deal in Detroit there, and Justin was telling me some stories. It must be fun on the weekends.
Oh, it's the best. Yeah. That show I broke Justin Rogers into was underground, hardcore, light tubes, pin needles, and all that stuff you can't show on TV. We were a little blown away at Harpo's.
I love it. All right, well, let's get back to football. Let's take a look back against Cleveland before we move ahead to Cincinnati. Ben, what was your biggest takeaway from Sunday's win?
Just that when the offense stubs its toes, that the defense and the special teams can lift it up. Because, it's not like the offense was terrible or anything, but, they didn't take advantage of some chances they had. They kind of stubbed their toe, had 2 long field goals, and then they needed Khalif to break it open. But, the biggest takeaway is that Kelvin Shepard is showing some versatility and flexibility as a defensive coordinator. Like, very matchup based. He is who he is in his defense, who it is what he wants it to be. But the QB spy stuff, he found a way to make it his own. You get punched in the mouth on the opening drive for the Browns, and I don't think they made it back to the red zone outside of one more time. So it's the in-game adjustments are real with Shepard, and he's flexible. He's open to ideas.
We talked to him this week, and he said, look, we probably played more different schemes and variations than we had, in Dan Campbell's tenure here when Aaron Glenn was here. That speaks to Shep just understanding what he has in terms of personnel, how he wants to handle those matchups like you talked about. And I love a defensive coordinator that isn't scared like that. They're playing a ton of base defense, which they think they can hide some coverages and rush stuff off that. I just love the way he's calling it and playing it and scheming it right now. It seems like Dan's got a ton of trust in him.
Yeah, and I wrote that in my column this week about Shepard. Was like, Dan fully trusts Shepard.
Yeah.
And when Dan Campbell fully trusts in you, that does a lot of weight carrying throughout the rest of the building. And Shepard's presence and how he carries himself, I don't even think he needed that boost. Like, these guys really gravitate to him. But, I love it. You shouldn't treat Lamar Jackson like any other quarterback in the league. You shouldn't treat Chase and Higgins like any other receiver do in the league. And, they preach versatility. They preach cross-training. They preach getting out of your comfort zone, and he's flashed on it. Yeah.
The offensive line, 0 sacks in 3 straight weeks. I think you have to go back to 1950, the last time this franchise has done that. 14 sacks. They're trailing only Denver defensively. With 14 sacks, Denver's got 15. They're second there. Ben, can the offense and defensive line continue this play throughout the season? Look, there's going to be hiccups here and there. That's the NFL. But fundamentally, is this what they are? Is this what we're seeing, what we're going to see for 6, 7, 18 weeks? And if we do, boy, how good can this football team really be?
That's the thing. I think both sides can get better. Starting on offense, Ratledge is only 4 games into his career. And it's been, there's blips on the radar. There's rookie learning curves and stuff like that. But he's been good. He's been really good. And it keeps getting better. And he's shown what his best can look like at this stage of his career. And it's pretty great. Mahogany fits like a glove. I think both those guys still have a ton of room to grow. There's still new pieces to the operation. Even Mahogany was here last year. No camp, no preseason, plays in 2 games, and it feels like he's been a starter here for 2 years.
Yeah.
So offensive line, arrow up, because as Decker continues to get used to his shoulder and recovering from that, I just think there's only room to grow for the O-line. And on the defensive line, that guy Liam McNeil's coming back pretty soon.
He's pretty good, isn't he? He might make a difference.
Yeah, truly
Ty
elite.
Leak's a young player, too. He's going to just keep trending up. So I thought what Shepard said today, once Aleem gets back, and we don't know when that'll be, he's obviously chomping at the bit. The way he described his practice yesterday, it might be sooner rather than later. The Lions are going to be careful with him, but boy, Ben, when you can put Tyleek, Aleem, DJ Reader, and Roy Lopez has played pretty well to begin this season too. I mean, that's 4 starting caliber defensive tackles that you can throw around and do some different things with. Shep's going to really enjoy that, and he's going to be able to be creative with it, isn't he?
Yeah, and it lets Tyleek play the downs that he's specialized for
good call.
at this young of his career. And I mean, McNeil, you talk about finding a guy that can unlock Hutchinson and take away some pressure from Hutchinson, double teams and chips. It's McNeil.
Yeah.
I mean, he's elite against the run, and he's one of the best interior pressure creators in the league. I mean, he's a $97 million guy for a reason. I mean, this is a very high-quality, versatile inside-outside guy coming back to the line. And the better positions you can put Tyleek in and DJ and play around with those fronts, the better it's going to be.
There was no letdown last week after obviously a huge road win in Baltimore. I don't see that being a thing with this team. Do you?
No.
Just the way that Dan is, the way that they don't take teams lightly, the way they talk about opponents. Look, Cincinnati hasn't played well, and for good reason. They lost their all-pro quarterback, arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But Detroit is treating them. They've talked about the weapons on the outside with T. Higgins and Chase, and the running back, and some of the weapons on defense with obviously Trey Hendrickson, and there's just no letdown. I don't see that being a thing. Do you?
No, I don't think that. No, there's no trap games in the NFL.
Yeah.
These are NFL teams, and I just think a Dan Campbell-led team isn't going to waste a Sunday. I mean, this is what they live for. I mean, his culture is embedded in this team's DNA, and there's no overlooking anybody because they remember what that felt like in 2021 and 2022 and what they started to do to people. I mean, they got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson and Logan Wilson. I mean, they got some talent on that side of the ball, and if you fall asleep at the wheel, they'll bite you.
Yeah.
And they don't overlook anybody. They're thankful to play every freaking chance they get. I mean, you just so rarely see a head coach's DNA and blueprint on the culture, on the mentality like you do here.
100%. All right, let's look ahead to Cincy a little bit. You take a look at them. They're 2-2. Get off to the start. Lose Joe Burrow. They've lost their last 2. Didn't look particularly good on Monday in Denver. 28-3 loss. But when you watch them, Ben, what gives you maybe the most worry about that football team?
It is Chase and Higgins.
Yeah.
Because it's the one of the best all-around wide receivers in the game, and Chase, who plays like he's 6'3", and then you got T. Higgins, who's literally 6'4", 220. I mean, they can beat you a ton of ways. I've been shocked that they haven't been able to get those guys the ball. I mean, everything should be going through those two. I think they only have 14 catches, 120 yards, and no touchdowns over the last 2 games.
That's crazy.
Chase can do that in one game by himself.
Yeah.
So that's where my eyes go there, because it's like they paid that money to those guys for a reason, and it's like there's belief in Jake Browning. At least there was inside that building. I mean, he had started for him before, but like so far it's been like they can't get him the ball, and if they can't get those 2 guys the ball, they're going to put up 3 points.
Yeah, and obviously the Lions are going to be without DJ Reed.
Yeah.
Put him on injured reserve. That means he's going to miss at least the next 3 games with the bye week coming after that. So to your point, now you dip into your depth a little bit. You expect Meek maybe to move outside a little bit. They'll deal with what they've got to in the nickel. But again, they play a lot of base defense. But I thought it was interesting this week. I listened in on Browning's interview on Wednesday, and he said, boy, when I looked at that film, I did a terrible job giving my guys opportunities on 50-50 balls. You just threw a couple where the receivers had no chance, underthrew one. He said that's one thing. When I see one-on-one on the outside, I'm going to give those guys an opportunity to make a play. I think that'll be an interesting dynamic Sunday against a secondary that's now dipping into their numbers a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. No DJ Reed. That's huge. Terrion's banged up. Hasn't been the start he's wanted this season. I mean, that is, I mean, if I were the Bengals, that's what I would be attacking too, is like this defense that loves to play man coverage and trust their guys. Like, let's see if we can get them.
Yeah.
That's how the Browns scored on that opening drive too. They ate at the man coverage, but, Shepard was able to adjust, move the rotations around, because I'm fascinated by what they're going to do. Is it going to be a Meek day outside? Is Branch going to play the slot? Is Yasin? Is Maddox? So, I mean, they have that versatility for a reason. It's obviously a daunting matchup with those receivers, but, yeah, it's a big test. It's a big chance, as Shepard said, for Terrion Arnold. I mean, if you're going to play this weekend, 2 practices in a row, seems like he's on track. It's time to step up.
Be the guy.
It's time to see that guy that we saw the final 8 weeks of last season.
And the guy that we saw in training camp, which has been a little
yes.
surprising to me that he's gotten off to the start he did, because you probably wrote it too. I know I did
yeah.
probably a couple times, just how good he looked against J-Mo and St. Brown. And he was terrific, and I thought he was really just going to take off. And still some of the issues with the technique, the hands, the penalties, I think he cleans that up. It'll go a long way to playing better football. But Ben, can the Bengals score enough without Joe Burrow to compete with Detroit? Because offensively, and I thought John Morton, the offensive coordinator, said it perfect this week when we talked to him. We said, we can do what we want.
Yeah.
And he's not lying.
No.
They can run the football. They're top 10 in the rush, top 10 in the pass, number 1 in scoring, top 10 in overall defense. You got to feel really good about what this team is doing offensively going into Sunday.
Yeah, the Bengals can't keep up. This was an easy prediction for me this week, and it's like the Bengals have some weapons. They might score some points. They might be better than they were last week, but I don't think. I see 35-plus points for this Lions team. Just because, last week, J-Mo and Goff are off. Guess what they do? They go to St. Brown.
Yeah.
Who's getting some wild praise this week, but deservedly so.
Yeah.
And they fed Gibbs. Monty didn't have his best day. When they just have so many guys like that, when somebody's not at their best, somebody else steps up. You see Gibbs, 21 carries last week. So that's the tone.
I'm going to caution you. I'm going to caution you a little bit about Monty, though. You guys are going to see him. No. You guys are going to see him on the podcast. He's my guest next, and he is going home. What's interesting is he has never played college or professional football in his hometown of Cincinnati. He's very motivated. We're going to hear from him next, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets going too. Both these running backs get going. J-Mo has a little bit of a bounce back. They catch a big play with him too. We know what Saint's going to do. Saint's going to be Saint. It's just, it's so hard as a defensive coordinator. I think when you sit down and you start to scheme this, you're like, what do we have to stop? And the list just keeps going and going and going and going and going. I'm with you. I think if Cincinnati's going to have a chance, they've got to get those guys on the outside going. They've got to create some big plays offensively, because I think their only chance is to shoot up, because you're not going to stop Detroit.
No, not at all. And Chase Brown's a good back, but I would take the Lions' run defense against a lot of teams, especially this one, because that Cincy O-line has not been the best. And like you said, David Montgomery don't need a lot of motivation to bounce back. I'm sure he's feeling it off of 12 yards on 9 carries last week anyway. Yeah. You go home for the first time. We saw what that guy did in Baltimore. Don't forget about Montgomery, because the Lions sure have not.
What do you like about the way Hutch is playing right now? Looking for his 4th straight with a sack. What is the stupid number, 19 or 20? The quarterback hit in a row or something like that. He's back to being Hutch, and when he's back to being Hutch, and we already talked about what they're going to get back in the middle. I think we haven't even talked about Al-Qadim Muhammad and what he's looked like, what they've been able to do with him. Shepard said, "Look, we've found our guy opposite. It's him." And then you just, you forget about Hutch, who's one of the top guys in the league. It's just, he's playing at a really great level. What have you liked the most about his play?
That he's found ways to fight through the double teams, the constant chips, knowing that you are going to get double teamed on basically every single play, and just finding ways, if he's not in the backfield, to take the guys with him, open it up. Muhammad has been great at being in the right spot at the right time when, the quarterback is pushed that way, because Hutchinson is hitting 2 guys with an inside spin move and he's bearing down the hatches. But I just like to see that he's maybe had an even better form than he was last year. The punch outs, the forced fumbles. He's making noise. That's a DPOY, man. It really is. It felt like he was on that track last year, and it feels like he's right back there this year. He's great against the run. He's a workhorse on the levels that's only comparable to Max Crosby. He does everything. He's about the team, and it's just, if you put him one-on-one or just with 2 offensive linemen, he's gonna win.
It's such an advantage, and he's been so fun to watch. You expect him to continue it going this week. Lions hit the road. It should be a fun one in Cincinnati in front of a national audience. This Lions team is rolling right now, looking for 4 straight. He is Ben Raven, does a great job with everything M Live. You got a podcast too, right?
Yeah, Dungeon of Doom with Corey Woods.
Dungeon of Doom with Corey Woods. So you can follow him on M Live, and we'll be right back with David Montgomery. Welcome back to the Twentyman Huddle podcast. I'm very happy to welcome in David Montgomery, running back for the Detroit Lions. And David, this is a little bit of a homecoming weekend for you. I found it amazing for how long You played obviously college ball at Iowa State. For how long you've been in the NFL, you have never played in your hometown of Cincinnati. How exciting is this week going back home for you?
Yeah, I think for me it's very exciting just because it's something that I haven't done yet. But I think it's cool to see like some of my close friends that I went to school with and some people that I had contact with in my city coming out to support and get to see me kind of play live in my hometown. I think it's really cool.
So I thought, in honor of you going back home to Cincinnati, we want to give you a little look at what you were doing back in the day at Cincinnati. So for all those people listening on audio, we got some highlights of David playing high school football in Cincinnati. So just press play. I want you to just take us through some of this a little bit. You're a dual threat quarterback, one of the best players to ever come out of Ohio. What are you seeing here?
I don't know. I think this was 6th green and I ended up cutting our way backside. Oh, my God. This film is so old, bro. Oh, my goodness. This was a little skater I took to the crib. This was against Talawanda. High step.
Ooh, high step in there at the end. And then, look, you didn't do a lot of throwing as a quarterback, but look at the little.
I mean, I didn't have to. We was winning off of just me running the ball. But when I had to throw it, I could throw it too. So,
well, when you look at this kid right here, when did he fall in love with football?
Man, I think for me, probably the first time I like really fell in love with the game was when I was probably like 8, 9. I think like when I was younger, I started playing when I was 5. You did it because you had to do it. You didn't really like contact as a kid. But then I realized like I could be pretty dominant. Just how I played and how I was. I think for me that's what I really realized, like, oh man, I really like this a lot.
What is it about the team aspect of football that you love? You know, obviously it's a physical game, it's a tough game, but there's this team aspect, and when you look at this football team that you're on right now, it kind of embodies it to me. What do you like about that aspect of it?
Well, I think that's the unique part about the game of football. You know, it's a vast majority of people from all walks of earth, all walks of life. You know, they come together from different backgrounds, and being able to experience some of the same taxing, you know, things that you go through on the field and being able to like have the results together. It feels good knowing that you know, fighting with somebody from a different place, but the love is unconditional. So I think it's really cool just being a part of a group or a team to where like you can come from anywhere but have a same common goal and, you know, kind of benefit from it together.
You know, not all players have that kind of mentality, David, because, look, you signed here in 2023, right? You signed a 3-year, $18 million deal. You're going to be the guy. A team drafts a running back in Jahmyr Gibbs. I've seen it before in my time covering this league that you know, veteran guys don't take that guy under their wing. Maybe there's a little bit of resentment there. You're never like that. And I've never seen that with really any of the other groups, the offensive linemen, when young guys have come in. Why was it important for you to take Ja under your wing and be a great teammate and not be that other guy?
Yeah, I think it's easy to kind of fall into that rabbit hole of like I. And, you know, ultimately, like, you want to win, but, like, there's things that you develop relationships with certain people. Like, Ja is like he's an incredible athlete, but he's a more incredible person, and people don't really know that. But I've had an opportunity to experience like him interpersonally and being able to get to know him, and it's far beyond football for me. Like, I want Ja to be the best version of himself, but he also helps me like be a better person, a better human, and a better football player at the end of the day. So I just felt like it was just the right thing to do.
How do you guys complement each other on the football field and in the meeting room and outside?
Yeah, I think like we're both super competitive. So like once he sees like, if I see him pop one off, I'm like, I gotta do the same thing. Like, it's always about us challenging each other, and I think like it's a lot harder for people to kind of put a dot on us just because, you know, when you look at John, you look at me, they try to like say, okay, John just does this and Demo just does that, but like that's not the truth if you really like break down the film and see it. And I think that's what makes it so hard to kind of like stop us together. But I think in the same degree, it's also like advantage us. Just being able to have, you know, two guys who can do a lot of things and are super selfless. I mean, I think it's paid huge dividends for us since we've been here.
Look, I say this all the time when I watch games. Like, man, I would hate to be an NFL running back. Just the hits that you guys take, the pounding that you guys take every week. How beneficial has that been too, David, just to be the better version of yourself in the fourth quarter and to have a little bit more kind of tread on the tires?
I think it's super important just because, you know, it's always that late year push that, you know, where injuries kind of kick in, and the guys who carry the load, they typically spud out or don't make it. But again, it's unique. The system we got here, he rolls, I roll, and we are able to keep each other fresh. So I think it's very important that we realize we in it for the long game, and and I think everybody upstairs understands that too, of how important it is to keep both of us fresh.
How much do you appreciate what Jared's not only done for the last few years, but just the level that he's playing with right now? Everybody gives the offensive line credit for him not being sacked for 3 weeks. The running backs get a lot of credit too. The tight ends for fighting on the edges get a lot of credit, but JG gets a lot of credit too. Just when you look at how well he's playing right now, how perfect is he a fit for this offense and for this team?
Yeah, I think everything that he's receiving is deservingly so. He comes in here with the mentality to be the best version of himself that he can be, and it's obvious. And we kind of feed off of JG, and JG he's a high-end competitor, but he's also a great team guy too. So I think when you look at somebody who you want leading the charge, you got to look at JG, and he embraces that role. He embodies what it is to be a quarterback, and he was a cast out, just like a lot of other guys were here. So I think him embracing being that guy and being able to relive and recreate a name for himself, I think is very important for him. And just to kind of see like what he's developing into, and allowing him to be the best version of himself, I think is a beautiful thing to see.
It's funny, we talked to him this week. This actually marks his 70th game in Detroit. He played 69 with the Rams. So now he's a Detroit guy now. You mentioned Morton in the offense. Just what have you thought of John? I thought you made a great point that there's not stuff for John, not stuff for you. You guys, it's the same offense, and you've got two backs that can do both, everything. So it makes it so hard on a defense. What have you liked the most about Johnny Mo in that role? How's he maybe a little bit different to Ben?
I think Johnny Mo, he's unique in his own light. Super vocal, aggressive, and he's not scared to like say what's on his mind. So if you are sensitive or weak-minded, you won't make it. But ultimately, it's just him trying to make you the best person that you can be and the best player that you can be also. But, he demands a lot from us, and there's nothing that he demands that we can't, touch. So I think that if Johnny Mo's out there talking, I think it's big and it's important. So I think, Johnny understanding the kind of guys that he has, and, he always says his job is on Sundays, don't mess it up. Because he got enough guys, and the guys are good enough down there in that locker room to where we should be able to beat anybody if we play on our best brand of ball. So Johnny, he's super super vocal, super cool, but I love the guy.
David, you're the number one scoring offense in football. Your offensive line is playing like a top 5 unit. You guys can run the ball, you can throw the ball. Are we seeing the best version of you guys, or is there still more to this that we haven't seen yet? Are you guys still kind of heading this way?
Yeah, I think we're definitely still ascending. I think just the expectation that we have for ourselves, we could be so much better. It may seem like we put up a lot of points, but within those games, there's things that we kind of leave out there on the bone that we know we can improve on, and we will. I think it just comes with continuing to build chemistry, and also just being more cleaner, get more repetition on things that we didn't really. At the end of the day, Johnny Mo's still our new offensive coordinator, and we still learning him every day. So I think repetition and us still sticking together and realizing that this is a greater goal for all of us here, and I think we could definitely reach some heights that a lot of people haven't been able to touch yet.
A couple more for you before I let you go. Just Cincinnati this week, how much you looking forward to, and how much have you had to kind of dip into the wall a little bit, get some tickets here and there, and just what's that pregame atmosphere going to be like for you, seeing some friends for the first time again for a while, being able to play in front of some family, just what's the lead up to this week like?
Yeah, I think it had and set in. It's not just a game, it's not just a normal game for me. Just because I grew up with a lot of guys gonna be in the stands. There's gonna be a lot of guys that I grew up with who gonna be big Bengals fans. So, I think it's just gonna be really, really cool to see a lot of familiar faces and coming to support me, and throughout my entire journey of me playing ball, the same people who rooted for me when I was in high school and to when I got to college and even in the NFL now, I think it's super cool to have that experience. But like I said, the most important thing that I'm kind of excited about, seeing my sister and seeing my nephew. So that's probably the most exciting thing I'm waiting for.
Speaking of family, you became a father a couple of years ago. I'm just curious, how is becoming a dad changed you as a person, maybe changed you as a football player?
Definitely softened my heart. Just you can't be ultra aggressive with a child that's learning life every day, who's curious about the things that they don't know. So I think a lot of times, me playing this game the way that I play it at a violent level, I think it enables me to think that like I could be that way towards my son, but my son has like taught me like I'm just a kid, and just being available and like showing up and let him know like this is who your dad is and this is how your dad wants you to see you. I think that's super, super big and important for me. So it definitely like has changed who I am and who I'm becoming. Also like giving me more patience too. So yeah, I love every bit of it.
Well, it should be fun. You guys are on some kind of streak offensively. Obviously, as a football team, you won 3 straight, looking for 4. David Montgomery's going home, looking forward to it. Go show the home crowd what you guys can do offensively. Appreciate taking the time.
I appreciate you.
Welcome back to the Twentyman Huddle podcast presented by Microsoft. I am very happy to welcome in Kelsey Conway. She does a great job covering everything Cincinnati Bengals for the Cincinnati Enquirer. Kels, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me on. It feels like it's a rare matchup that I get to like talk about the Bengals and the Lions with you, so I'm excited.
I know. I like these kind of interconference matchups. You don't know much about the opponent. There's a little bit of uncertainty. Unfortunately for you guys, you're coming off a very short week, having been Monday in Denver. How are you doing sleep-wise? Are you all right? You good?
Tuesday was a rough travel day back, and it felt like Wednesday. I was like, I don't think my body really got on the clock until like 3:00. So today I feel back to normal. So we're good.
I hear you. We had Baltimore last week. Now Baltimore's not obviously Denver, but those short weeks they add up. When you go those Thursdays to Thursdays, they start to get crazy. We got one of those coming up here too. But all right, let's get into this matchup on Sunday, Kels. You look at 3 games in a row now for Cincinnati under 200 yards of offense, and you look at all the weapons with Chase and Higgins and Brown, and look, I know they don't have obviously Joe Burrow, but Browning has played in this league. He's played good football in this league. What is it about these last few weeks? What's been the biggest issue when you watch them offensively?
So, I mean, that's been like the nonstop question here in Cincinnati. Like, we peppered the Bengals offensive coordinator, Dan Pitcher, with, 6 questions back to back to back about the offensive production yesterday. And the way that they look at it is different than the way I look at it. But the way that they look at it is that game against Minnesota, which was Browning's first start, was an uncharacteristic 5 turnovers. Like under Zach Taylor, they don't really turn the ball over much, and they're not really a high penalty team. And so against Minnesota, they had 5 turnovers, and it was players like Jamar Chase fumbling. Like, it was just a weird game. And honestly, like, the game got so out of whack early, they couldn't have their full offensive playbook, because once you get down, 3 scores on the road, you're just constantly trying to throw the ball, and the Vikings had an answer for all of that. So that was the story of the Minnesota game. So Zach Taylor is like, turnovers that killed us. That's the story of why we couldn't do anything on offense. Then everything was about a rebound, and we talked to players, and they were like, that is not who we're going to be. We need to play better. And I honestly thought they were going to play a lot better against Denver. And then they came out in Denver. They had a really awesome first drive. They got a field goal out of it. And then they just spiraled, and they could not get a first down. They had more penalties than first downs. They had 11 penalties. And it just hasn't felt like the team has been able to even give themselves a chance on offense to run the ball or do more under center, because they're constantly playing from behind the 8 ball, where it's like you get a penalty and you're now 1st and 15. And it just feels like they've shot themselves in the foot too much with things that they can control, where it's kind of hard to even judge what they are on offense.
Well, how much have they talked about, or how much do they know, Kels, that they have to fix it this week with a Detroit Lions team that is maybe the opposite right now? They are firing on all cylinders offensively. They can run the football. They can protect Jared Goff. They haven't allowed a sack in 3 weeks. They ran for 224 on Baltimore. They threw for 330 and 5 touchdowns on Chicago. They're number 1 on offense. They're top 10 running and passing. So when an offense sees that kind of task task coming in. Obviously, they don't play on the field together at the same time, but when an offense comes in, you get a sense that they feel like they've got to kind of figure some of this out, because Detroit's probably going to score some points here, even on the road, and you got to keep up with the Joneses if you're Cincinnati's offense.
100%. And we asked Bengals offensive coordinator Dan Pitcher about statistically, like, here's where the Lions rank. And he said, well, I respect the numbers. He said, my job is how to beat the tape. Like, I have to watch and how to come up with a plan to beat the tape. But I think that everybody knows that they haven't been playing winning football, and that of all games for them to play sharp and have no self-inflicted issues, it would be this week, because they know that with Jake Browning, I mean, even if they had Burrow, this was a game where I didn't have them winning, just because I think the Detroit Lions are so good in the trenches. I think even without Burrow, like, they're going to have to play perfect, and I still don't think perfect is enough, because I think they could have a great offensive game, and then they haven't been able to play better on defense. And on defense, they'll tell you, well, we've been on the field too much because the offense hasn't been able to sustain drives. So overall, it's just been a mess here in Cincinnati, and I'm not really sure where the easy, quick fix is, because I think they just have some deficiencies that Joe Burrow covered up, and right now you're looking at them.
Well, sometimes coming home after a tough loss like that, a short week, you don't have time to reminisce about the week before. It's just about getting forward in the next. Sometimes that can do a team good and refocus you a little bit too. And so hopefully the fans in Cincinnati can look toward that maybe as being something where they'll play better football on both sides of the ball. Kelsey, any injury issues with Cincinnati coming into this game that might affect it, or are they pretty healthy?
For the most part, they're pretty healthy. They haven't had Shamar Stewart, and I think that's hurt them, because I think they thought he was going to be able to be a factor opposite of Trey Hendrickson. And you know how it goes with rookies. If you miss 3 to 4 weeks, coming on top of the fact that he missed the entire offseason with his contract drama, I think they're really missing him. It doesn't look like he's going to play. He didn't practice today, and he is dealing with a low ankle sprain. And he told me it could be a couple weeks. So this will be game 3 that he would miss. So I think he'll have more of a chance next week. So that's probably the biggest injury. Offensively, they are in good shape. They have their 2 receivers. They have Mike Gesicki. Their offensive line is in really good shape from a health standpoint. So other than that, they seem to be pretty good from an injury standpoint, which they need to be at full strength to try and even compete with these Lions.
You mentioned the wide receivers. When I was watching that game Monday night, I noticed just from the outside looking in a little bit of frustration from Jamar Chase. And obviously, I understand it. He's goes into the season thinking he's going to have the quarterback who had the kind of season he had last year, and he's going to be a big part of that. You don't get that. But is there any worry in Cincinnati about Jamar and the frustrations and maybe some of that, bubbling over a little bit and spilling out into other areas?
Well, I'll tell you, I believe it was Jamar's rookie season was my rookie season covering the Bengals, and they were in Chicago, and he did not like how he was featured in the game, and he just blasted Zach Taylor to us post game. And Jamar is very outspoken, and everybody respects it because he backs up what he says, but he just is very matter of the fact. And so all of us in the media were wondering after that game in Denver, how was the post game going to be? Was he going to sound off? Like, what was that going to be like? And he's a captain this year, and he was very calm, cool, and collected, and didn't, throw Zach Taylor under the bus. He didn't throw the offensive game plan under the bus, but he did say that they lacked a want to on offense, and you could tell that bothered him because he goes out every game. He's one of the most competitive people I've ever covered. So right now it seems like he's understanding the leadership part of his evolution in the NFL, but he's a competitor at heart. And I don't know how, if in 2 more games, if the offense continues to look as bad as it has, I don't know how that's going to go over for him and T. Higgins. So right now everybody's playing nice in the sandbox, but I'm not sure if there's 2 more humiliating losses that take place, because the Bengals play the Packers next week, to another tough matchup. I don't know if I'll be able to say the same thing.
Kels, what's the biggest matchup for you heading into this game? The Cincinnati Bengals need to do what to come back home and get a big win against a Detroit Lions team that's playing really good football right now and looking to win 4 straight?
I think they need to play really well up front on both sides of the ball, but specifically on the offensive line. They have not played well at all this year. And you're talking about players you were counting on, like Orlando Brown Jr., their starting left tackle, Ted Karras, their starting center. All of those guys you were expecting to not be an issue because the Bengals right now are starting 2 rookie guards. Those 2 and Amarius Mims on the right side have got to play well because you cannot afford against this Detroit Lions team with Hutchinson and DJ Reader, who we all know well here. If they don't give Jake any semblance of confidence by giving him some time to get the ball to Jamar and T, I think it's going to be the same old, same old. So I think the number one matchup for me is the Bengals offensive line has to play their best game of the season against Detroit to even give themselves a chance against the Lions.
Last one for you, Kels. Can Cincinnati win and win consistently with Jake Browning at quarterback?
I don't think so. I think that I thought when Joe went down, right, because I was covering the team in 2023 when Jake Browning went 4-3 as the starter. It just feels different this time around with this offense. He was doing things more under center. They had the screen game going. Like, it felt like he took over an offense because it was later in the season. It was November. He took over an offense that had an identity. The fact that in his press conference on Monday, after they lost the Broncos, he said, we have to figure out our identity. I don't think that's a good place for a backup quarterback to enter, and that's where they are. So I don't currently believe that they can, string together enough wins to even make this a conversation in December about if Joe could come back. But I mean, they could prove me wrong, but it hasn't looked good at all the last 2 weeks. And they're about to hit this stretch where they play the Lions, the Packers, and then the Steelers. And it's just going to be tough sledding. So unfortunately, I can't say objectively, I think that they can be competitive because it just hasn't looked good the last 2 weeks.
Well, it hasn't looked good, but the Detroit Lions certainly aren't taking them lightly. We talked to the assistant coaches, the coordinators, and even the players have talked about the weapons that they have on both sides of the ball, how Chase and Higgins can be game breakers if you let them be, how Brown's a good back. Obviously, we know what Trey can do. So, look, the Lions aren't taking them lightly, so there is certainly that out there. They're expecting a ball game come Sunday on the road in Cincinnati. What's the weather look like in Cincinnati this weekend?
I think it's supposed to be beautiful, like in the 80s.
There we go. That's what we're talking about.
And it'll be a 4 p.m. kickoff, so I think the sun won't be down. But just a quick question for you before we go. How's DJ Reader played? It's been kind of hard to follow from afar, but he was a locker room favorite of mine in the media here in Cincinnati.
Dude, he's been great. DJ Reader is one of the guys, and Kels, those guys don't always show up on the stat sheet, right? They don't tear it up, but they take on those double teams. They allow Jack Campbell to get the double-digit sacks. They push the pocket in the run game. The Detroit Lions run defense, that's top 10 in the NFL right now, and a big reason why is because of DJ Reader and Tyleik Williams, and they don't even have a Lee McNeil yet. He's coming back off PUP. He returned to practice this week, but I love DJ. He's a great guy. He doesn't have the C on his chest, but he is a C in that defensive line room. You know him. He's one of those great guys. He's playing a ton of snaps for them. He's doing what he has to till Liam gets back here, and he's a big reason why they're really, really solid up the middle on defense. So he's been really, really good.
Good. Well, I'll be happy to share that update with fans because I know he's a fan favorite, a media favorite, so I'm glad that he's doing well in Detroit.
Well, you do great things in Cincinnati. All you guys out there, if you need anything on the Bengals, Kelsey Conway is the person to go. She does a great job with the Cincinnati Enquirer. Kels, thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much. I'll see you in the press box on Sunday.